Hello and welcome to Moneycontrol's special segment where we take you through 10 stocks that have taken investors by storm in the previous Samvat. While some have been rockets in investors' portfolios, other stocks have fizzled out. So let's look back at our 10 names for today. Lovisha, what's the first one that you have for us?
Well, we'll talk about the first stock that is in focus, and that's a new age stock. That is your Swiggy. The stock did debut bourses this Samvat, and it was a tepid listing. But then we did see that the stock swiftly went up by 20% in the span of 1 month. The stock eventually also hit a record high of about 617 rupees per share because investors rewarded that growth story of this novel tech theme, and optimism and expectation has been quite strong that the company will be capturing a larger share of the consumer's wallet. But then we also saw that the counter hit about a low in the month of May when the 6-month lock-in period did expire and non-promoters unlocked the counter to sell as well. But even in the March quarter, that was a disappointment for Swiggy, and the losses had doubled, and investors feared that the company could be a victim of the high cash burning phase as well. But yes, the turnaround did happen from May lows, and now the stock is up by over 40% from its May lows, given that the revenue has risen by annually and sequentially basis as well. And though the company's first quarter performance has also been on a swelling losses, but the management recently said that their stake sale in Rapido will help cushion cash burn by this one large time inflow as well. So yes, now going into Samvat 2082, analysts will be expecting the upcoming quarters to reflect the reduction in losses, and the brokerage houses have also anticipated continued tailwinds in the food delivery growth as well, which could be augured well by the festive demand. So some stabilization and improvement could be expected in the quick commerce business as well. The company has also strengthened its food delivery outlook, and it has raised its growth estimates to nearly 23% for FY26 to FY27 as well. So that's a good stock coming in from there. And, I believe, Zoya, the next stock from you will be its competitor as well.
That's right, Lovisha. So, since its debut on the bourses, Swiggy has had quite the rollercoaster ride. Not just Swiggy, but its closest competitor, Eternal, has also had quite the year. The rebrand from Zomato to Eternal was something that the street did not expect, but with the company's Nifty 50 debut, it's now a name that nobody can really forget, This year, more than the food delivery business, experts and analysts were extremely positive on the quick commerce front. In fact, for the first time ever, Blinkit's average order value jumped far ahead of Zomato's. So while the food delivery segment does remain a very profitable anchor, Lovisha, Blinkit's rapid ascent in orders, order value and valuation has marked a very strategic pivot in Eternal's playbook. Going ahead, especially after that Q2 show, Eternal has flagged that there could be slower growth recovery, and the management has also hinted at a softer discretionary consumption environment. All this combined may damage investor sentiment.
All right, now shifting focus away from Swiggy and Eternal, let's go on and talk about the stock in focus, that is your HDB Financial Services. It was one of the first mega IPO that hit markets this Samvat as well, about 12,500 crore rupees of the issue size, and the IPO received about 17x subscription, which was led by a strong institutional demand for the NBFC player. Now, this is also the biggest NBFC IPO which got listed on the bourses with about 13% premium, crushing the skepticism that the investors had towards large issuances also. And it also became one of the 8th most valuable in NBFC with about 70,000 crore rupees of a market cap. Now, investors are betting on this company as they like that it has crossed about 1 lakh crore rupees in OM value without having any need of external capital for the past 8 years. So that is quite a notable achievement given that the major IPOs that have hit the market, they've still been incurring losses or facing profitability challenges as well. But if you look at the stock performance, that since then, from the listing price, HDB Financial has dropped about 16%, and it is also trading below the IPO's upper price band as well, because there are some concerns in the street over sector-wide pressures on credit costs and some margin issues as well. But as we step into the new Samvat, what the street will be watching out for, some key monitorables will be the company's disbursement trends going forward after their second quarter results have showcased a good loan growth, and net interest income growth will also be some of the key monitorables as well. The OM has given out a year-on-year expansion of about 13% in second quarter, while interest income on the other hand has risen by about 13% on a year-on-year basis. So yes, that is one stock that we'll be watching out in the upcoming quarters this Samvat as well. One of the biggest IPOs, but yes, some tepid listing and some faltering returns since its listing price.
That's true. Well, Lovisha, who can forget that the excitement HDB IPO brought to Dalal Street? Since we're talking about the financial pack, let's talk about one of the most watched stocks on the bourses this past Samvat, which has been IndusInd Bank. Now, we all know that IndusInd Bank has had quite the year. With alleged fraud concerns, accounting discrepancies and the management reshuffle, the bank stock has taken a very sharp beating and sunk nearly 50%. The incorrect accounting of internal derivative trades has had a nearly 2,000 crore impact on the bank's net worth. Not just that, but there was also a probe into a 600 crore rupee discrepancy in the bank's MFI portfolio. Well, based on SEBI's interim order, the bank's management was actually aware of this derivative discrepancy about 15 months before the lender disclosed it to the public. This has led to a rejig in management, and it goes absolutely without saying that investors were not happy about this. Nearly half the stock's MCAP has been wiped off since then. But going into the new year, this bank could actually be slated for a turnaround. Brokerages are turning positive on IndusInd Bank. In fact, Morgan Stanley recently upgraded the stock amid inexpensive valuations. Further, the broking house added that the clarity over the management after the new CEO appointment is also a very key positive. In FY25, the bank might end the year with a very clean balance sheet and strong coverage ratio.
All right, that was IndusInd Bank for you, Zoya. And of course, we'll be watching out for the figures, how it closes, how the stock closes for this year as well. But yes, adding another name from the financials pack, let's also talk about Tata Capital, one of the biggest IPO of this year, which had an issue size of about 15,000 crore rupees. Now, the IPO did garner about 2 times of its subscription, but it failed to make an impressive debut on the bourses. It debuted about flat on the exchanges. Now, the street has been divided on why did Tata Capital, which carries the brand value of Tata Group, started on such a polite note. The skeptics believe that there was no immediate growth figures which was visible for the sector, which is why it failed to keep up with the market hype. Well, some have argued that the peers operating in the sector has underperformed as compared to last year, and that's what has failed to keep up with the enthusiasm as well. But yes, so what the optimists have been arguing, they believe that this is just a short-term picture and the long-term investors should keep on holding the counter as well. Now, some of the key triggers which they believe will hold well as we step into the new Samvat, that is, the investors should watch out how the management commentary on growth outlook looks like, understand the loan book growth trends, and it's given its diversified presence across the retail, corporate and housing finance segments, it still is quite a compelling play in the India's financial services segment. But yes, amongst that, Tata Group stocks that have been in focus this Samvat. And Zoya, off to you to another Tata Group company.
That's right. Speaking about the Tata Group, let's talk about Tata Motors. The stock has had quite a bumpy ride. The year gone by saw Jaguar Land Rover trimming its guidance amid Trump's tariff wars, which clouded the luxury auto player's sales outlook. Further, Tata Motors' demerger of its commercial and passenger vehicle arms has caught the street's attention. The management had decided to spin off the commercial vehicle arm into its own listed entity last year in order to sharpen the business focus and capitalize on growth opportunities for both the firms. Going ahead, analysts are very bullish on the passenger vehicle arm as they believe that the momentum for the passenger automobiles has picked up pace after the GST reforms and festive and pent-up demand has come in. Further, since the passenger vehicle arm includes JLR, the outlook remains bullish and analysts are very positive.
That's right. You know, Tata Motors, while the GST cheer is on, but the weak wholesales data that came in from JLR is something that we'll be keeping a watch out for.
Exactly.
But yes, shifting focus from Tata Motors, let's also talk about the blockbuster stock of this Samvat, and it is a recently listed stock, none other than the LG Electronics. Now, the IPO has received several milestones. First, the IPO was oversubscribed by about 54 times on the final day of its bidding, amid the strong participation which was seen from the institutional investors. With this, LG Electronics also became the most subscribed public issue in the Indian stock market, and it has beaten the record which was earlier held by Bajaj Housing Finance. Now, since the IPO was entirely an OFS, the proceeds will entirely go to the promoter selling the shareholders and will not be received by the company. But apart from this, the stock has a blockbuster listing of about 50% premium to the issue price, and it has received a consensus buy from the street as well. Now, the 4 factors that have impressed the street was that the counter was reasonably priced. Second, it operates in a sector where it is a leading player. Third, it is amongst the top brand names in the country. And fourth, it has a legacy of being in India for the past 66 years. So as we step into the new Samvat, investors will be watching out its growth story, understand whether the stock warrants such valuations, and some demand trends in the consumer appliances sector, which also be tracked after the GST rate cuts.
Well, that's right, Lovisha. Who can forget that 50% listing pop for that LG debut? It took everybody by surprise. Moving on, I have another Tata Group stock to discuss, that is Trent. Now, early in 2024, Trent was Dalal Street's darling, with analysts and experts remaining extremely bullish despite lofty valuations. However, the past summer was not too kind to this stock, which has taken a sharp 40% stumble on the bourses. Trent's current run rate falls short even of management's aspirations of 25% growth for the next few years. Further, the Q2 business update that we saw meant that Trent has marked 5 consecutive quarters of a sequential slowdown. As valuations have turned too demanding and the revenue growth pace has slowed, falling short of management's aspirations, we've seen the target cuts and downgrades come in rolling. But in the future, with GST cuts posing as a key tailwind for value retailers and Trent's very strong store additions, brokerages are very hopeful for a turnaround based on Trent's multi-pronged growth strategy.
Another Tata Group company,
That's
and
right.
They have been quite buzzing this Samvat as well. But yes, let's shift focus and talk about Yes Bank, because this Samvat, that lender has witnessed the largest cross-border investment in the Indian banking sector. We did see Japanese lender Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation winning RBI's approval to acquire nearly 25% stake in the company 5 years after we saw the clutch of banks rescuing a Yes Bank as well. Now, the stock this Samvat has delivered about 9% returns, and much of its outlook is going on to how the Japanese lender plans to scale up the corporate and trade finance businesses. But yes, the entry of SMBC establishes a new precedent for the future of foreign acquisition in the India's banking sector and enhances the corporate governance standard as well. So yes, this is something that we'll be watching out for. That is your Yes Bank.
Yes, Yes Bank, yes to Yes Bank is said by Japan. Now, once a street darling, the last segment that I have for you today is the Nifty IT Index. The domestic information and technology pack has seen a very sharp fall from December 2024 highs. This pack has been hammered by H-1B visa concerns and tightening discretionary expenditure from global firms. Clients from major markets like US and Europe are becoming more cautious about their tech spending as a result of the ongoing economic uncertainties. Adding to that, the recent hike in H-1B visa fees in the US has sparked worries about higher operating costs for those Indian IT companies that have a very strong on-site workforce there. It's also fueling concerns that the US could, going ahead, implement more protectionist and nationalist measures, which isn't helping the investor sentiment either. Globally, firms are focusing on cost optimization plans and undertaking massive layoffs, which is making the outlook for the domestic IT players even more cautious. While the Nifty IT index has stumbled deep into the correction territory this year. And for the upcoming Samvat, while shares of Nifty IT firms are approaching their long-term average valuations, brokerages are still awaiting strong earnings growth momentum. In the near term, there aren't many triggers for margin expansion. However, we still hope that the new Samvat can turn this ailing segment's fate around.
That's right, Zoya. And those were the top stocks that came in from Zoya and me. And as we step into the new Samvat, so do watch them out, and wishing all the viewers a very happy Diwali from the Moneycontrol team.